She is a financial planner and advisor.
She's the founder and president of Zinnia Wealth Management. She's also a popular radio show host.
There's a way to have your money in the market and have protected growth.
This holistic approach will help people get to and through retirement.
Absolutely.
You have to change the way that you think. It's not about having these double-digit returns anymore. Things are changing, and you have to have an advisor that's keeping up with the changes.
Your outcome is going to become very desirable if you have some sort of coach helping you along the way.
And our next recipient for the Media and Communications XP, Charisse.
Charisse Rivers.
Do not have to risk all your money in the market to survive, because it's about the retirement dream.
All righty, welcome back to another Facebook Live every Thursday at 3:30. I'm your host, Charisse Rivers, and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk, home of Zinnia Wealth Management. A quick introduction, I am the CEO, founder, and financial strategist here at Zinnia Wealth Management, and we are located throughout North and Central Florida in several offices. Okay, I'm going to give you a pregame because we have a lot to talk about and a lot of exciting things and some information that you all need to be really paying attention to right now. So we are going to start out with some stock market wonderful ups and down news. We're going to, go back to Jim Cramer and Kevin O'Leary and see what they're saying on some of the stock picks that they're recommending now. Then we're going to hop on over to our education segment where we're going to talk about Social Security and this loan that I forbid you all to get. And I'll tell you why soon. And some of the rules in Social Security and things that are changing. If you're young, is it going to be here when you get older? And if you're taking it, do you have to worry about Social Security disappearing or even lowering the value? And so we'll dive into that, which is incredibly important for planning. And then we're going to jump right into wills and trusts, power of attorneys. What is it? DNR. And do we need them? What do we need? What do we don't need? Because there's a lot of noise out there. Susie Orman says one thing. Clark Howard says another thing. And then you have Dave Ramsey that says another. They're all saying different things. So I'm going to kind of give you some feedback, tell you what they're saying, and give you my recommendation. Okay. And then we're going to end with a doing good segment and then a Q&A. Remember, you can ask questions throughout this entire segment. I'll open it up. Feel free to ask them and ask away. Okay, remember, I'm here to inspire, educate, and get you to retirement and beyond. And this is what this Facebook Live is all about. Don't forget to share this with your friends and on your Facebook pages. And here we go. Okay, let's start with the stock market. We had a 3-day rally up until Wednesday. Market was up over 500 points. Very exciting. I had some clients call, hey, Charisse, should we go back in a little bit more? With all this hype, or we're already at a high. So I know there's a lot of questions. I know some of you are sitting on the sidelines just saying, do I or don't I? And so what I'm recommending to some of our clients is, maybe baby step it. If you've pulled out completely or you don't have a financial advisor you're working with and you pulled out, maybe staircases, they slowly go up to slowly enter till you gain your confidence. Yes, we could have a correction, 10 to 15%. I don't have a crystal ball. I do know that if the markets go down 50%, that would be the most terrible thing we've seen since 2008. So there's a lot of hope that's driving our market right now, and Americans are definitely doing it. Despite the unrest out there with all the riots, stock markets are still moving forward. This week, today, Thursday, it went down a little bit. It's been bouncing kind of up and down, up and down. And here we go, not knowing really what's going to happen because jobless claims came out, another 1.7 million. And then yesterday, there was hope that the coronavirus is here and it was getting better and things are looking great. And this morning on CNBC, Dr. Fauci came out and what did he say? He says, well, I don't know. After looking at the report this morning, it looks like there could be a really a big wave coming here soon since everything's starting to open. And now they're saying, now we might have a problem. So again, there's a lot of noise out there, everyone. Tune in every Thursday and we'll do our best to share our opinions and what we're seeing and what we recommend. But do not do financial planning alone. Do not do the stock market alone. And that's why we are here. Okay, let me see what's up next on the charts here. NASDAQ rose a little bit. NASDAQ's almost back to where it was, which is incredible. And, Mike, can you go ahead and put up this chart for me so I can kind of go over this? Okay, you guys are looking at this chart, and what you're seeing is the S&P 500, the biggest 50-day rally in its history. This chart comes from CNBC, and it gives a visual of where the S&P index is today versus the coronavirus peak, right? And that's the pre-coronavirus. And what you're going to see is that it was doing really well, and say it's going to be iffy, and who knows, tomorrow could be a little bit iffier. We still have a long ways to go. We are not there yet, but you can see that it's going up and then it comes down. And this is how I look at things. If it goes up a little bit and comes down, it's okay, as long as we hit another high the next time it comes up. And you're kind of watching that staircase happening. But again, this could fall from underneath us, and who knows what could happen after that. Just make sure you're not going alone on that. We have some stimulus package news, and people are getting excited about that. People are really excited about businesses reopening more and more. You can go shopping now. More restaurants are opening. Almost all the hotels are open here in Florida. So there is a lot of excitement going on. And let's talk about Orlando. Universal Studios is now open to pass holders. Hey, this actually might not be a bad time to go because it'll be the quietest it will ever be. So maybe not a bad idea. Just bring your mask and lots of sanitizer. And then NBA, we've got it approved. NBA is going to be starting here at it is called Disney Wild World of Sports, coming July 31st. So that's exciting. So now we can go check that out. Governor DeSantis is really kicking some butt. He is truly trying to get jobs open, things moving here in Florida, and he's working hard. Yes, opening lots of things and inviting outsiders in might cause a little bit more sicknesses. Hospitals are starting to fill up again in other states, not in Florida yet, so we don't know. Just be careful, follow the rules. That's all we can say from week to week. All right, let's talk about what Jim Cramer said this week. He says, at the end of the day, the market has no conscience. Investors are simply trying to make money, and that's why the stay-at-home stocks are booming. So stay-at-home stocks. So I've been talking about these since the get-go. Zoom meetings. I mean, most of our meetings have been via Zoom. If you go back 8 weeks ago, Zoom cost $100, and today it's over $200. So if you bought into Zoom back in 8 weeks ago, you doubled your money, right? Personally, I jumped in when it was at $125 because I knew Zoom was going to be the new platform moving forward, because we're going to have this new change in our world. And a lot of companies are starting to realize that, hey, my employees work harder, they're more efficient, they get more done staying at home, and now I don't have to have as big of an office. I think over the next few years, we're going to see some big changes. So I'm a big fan of Zoom. He also said Amazon, Facebook, DraftKings, and DocuSign are also stay-at-home winners. And I agree. My business is ran on DocuSign. Anybody who has ever done anything with us over the last few years, it has been DocuSign. It's a fabulous thing. And a lot of companies are more and more. I even had an attorney who is, back in the decade, he's just not up to par. He's saying, Charisse, I even have to use DocuSign. So it's very popular. Let's talk about Amazon. I shop on Amazon. Amazon's not going anywhere, hopefully. But that's a big stock to buy into. And Facebook. Facebook is making it more friendly for small businesses to get their work done and have opportunities to sell things. So Facebook's doing a really great job there. And then let's talk about the last one. It's one of my favorites, DraftKings. And so remember, these are Cramer's picks. Also, I favor them incredibly. DraftKings is something I bought into personally because sports. I mean, you're watching Gonzaga basketball over and over and over again on TV, and there's not a whole lot of other options. So DraftKings came up with a place for people to gamble and watch sports. It was really interesting, and they skyrocketed too. Remember, these are stay-at-home winners because some other companies you might not want to be investing in, not now, but maybe down the road. Now, let's go to Kevin O'Leary. So I absolutely adore Kevin O'Leary. Anybody who knows who he is the Shark Tank Mr. Wonderful. I know he kind of comes off a little bad on the show, but he is a smart man. He was over at University of Florida this last year, and just, he inspires the young and people in retirement. And what he's saying is the new America 2.0 is much more efficient in how it runs businesses. So they're calling this America 2.0 because we're going into a different time and we have these new conference calls and Zoom meetings and all this stuff going on. But basically, he said the same thing I've been saying forever. Landlords' expenses will be going down. People are going to work efficiently and be at home. And so I totally back up Kevin O'Leary. One day, I promise you, I'm going to have him on my show. He's definitely on my bucket list for interviews. So definitely somebody to watch in the future. I do want to talk about something before I move on to Trump news. Let's talk about airline stocks. Airline stocks have, really, they're jumping. And you'll have seen JetBlue and United Airlines, they have doubled. I don't know if anybody's paying attention, but they have doubled. Their seating hasn't doubled, meaning like there's not more people flying. There's just a little bit. When we were at the bottom of COVID, when everybody stopped flying, there was only about 87,000 people flying. Now, as of today, we have 300,000 people flying. But if you go back a year ago, we had 2.3 million people flying. So we still have a long ways to go. Hey, I got to let you know, the light is painting. So live, you get what you get when it comes to lighting. And I use the window. What do you know? Okay, now that you can see me better, let's talk about those airline stocks again. And so I'm one of those people that says, when Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, remember, sold Delta and it dropped immensely, do you know who bought it? Me. I've been in this business long enough to know that when Warren Buffett sells something and it goes down, just go ahead and buy it, because you know what? He's probably going to buy it back in 2 weeks to 4 weeks, right? Airlines are still unknown. We still don't know what's going to happen with them. I just know that, it can't be a bad buy. And I have to also have a disclosure out here to you all, depending on your age and what your goals are. And if you're risk adverse, don't listen to me. You have to come into my office. I have to have a one-on-one with you. And we are doing office meetings now. We're officially open. We're also doing Zoom meetings and conference call. But this is not cookie cutter. What I'm telling you now about Delta doesn't mean go buy it. That's something I would need to recommend to you after I sit down with you and I see your situation and I see what season of life you're in, because you could be 24. And if you're 55, I might have a different story for you. So remember, there's a lot of noise out there, and I can't address for every age, but I'm going to be more kind of just blanket statement as much as I can. And remember, these are Kramer's picks that we're talking about. A lot of people are saying, Charisse, should I buy American Airlines? I don't know. It's done really well so far, right? And so again, that's a one-on-one conversation I'm going to have with each individual that decides to have a second opinion with us. And so investor behavior, I always say this, investor behavior, we buy high and we sell low. And people do that over and over and over again. You buy high, you sell low. And so it might be an opportunity people to buy somewhere in the middle or low and just sit it out. But remember, your short-term dollars should not be in the market. The money you need to live on. So remember that. All right, let's move on to our second segment, Trump news. Okay, Trump, he is a mastermind. I watched him a couple weeks ago on Fox News, a great interview, and then the market started going because he sounds good, he looks good, he smells good. He's like that cheerleader. He's going to get us, it's like a pep rally every time he talks, it seems like. And so, moved the market. He said a few things. One thing I will tell you is that the GOP is forced to find a new state to host the convention that was supposed to be in North Carolina. And guess who raised their hand first? Governor DeSantis said, hey, we'll do it in Florida. We'll be happy to bring those people here and continue to grow our GDP in Florida. So I just love the energy and the tenacity of Governor DeSantis. Yes, bringing people outside in could cause a health risk. So again, but we can't stop. Our economy can't stop. We have to continue to work, unfortunately. We have to continue to grow, or we will go into a Great Depression. So give him a little slack in case you're having some issues with him. All right, there have been multiple riots this week, and they're trying to, create peace. And Trump did something just was incredibly, I'm going to say the word stupid. And he had the National Guards physically clear out demonstrators using tear gas just to allow Donald Trump to have a photo in front of the church in DC. You know what? You gotta love the guy, but come on. So anyways, I had to razz on him a little bit because that's just wrong. You know, could we have gotten a picture somewhere else? Probably. So anyways, we're going to move on to Governor DeSantis. He basically said that we are extending the moratorium for the evictions and foreclosures until July 1st. So that's good. So he's really trying to push things through to help people out who are having a hard time paying, you know, their mortgages and rents and that kind of stuff. So again, I praise him dearly for what he's doing. All right, NASA. Did anybody catch NASA and SpaceX? I'm going to have to admit, I was on the beach and I did not see it go, and I was watching for it. So I missed it, and no, I wasn't drinking, in case somebody wants to know. Boogie boarding really caught my attention, but we have 2 men in space at the Space Center, and their plan is to be there for 4 months. So this is the first start in 10 to 12 years since we have, you know, sent somebody up. So I'm a big fan of SpaceX. I'm waiting for that puppy to go public, by the way. So that might be a while, but that's where my thoughts are in there. Let's talk about Darden restaurants. Has anybody heard of Darden restaurants? Well, right here, it says the restaurant industry may be slowing, heading towards normalcy. Orlando-based parent companies like Olive Garden and Longhorn says that they have restored their employees and they're bringing them back. So Darden Restaurants was one of my big picks early on when I purchased it back in April, and purchased it for a couple of clients also who wanted to jump on. And a lot of people were nervous, thinking, well, when are restaurants going to open? And guess what? They're opening. People are eating. Things are still good. In my opinion, Darden Restaurants is still a good buy. And but it could take a little bit longer for it to double again because we might have a pullback because lots of people getting sick. So we'll see. All right. Now that we're done with Trump news, Central Florida news, and the stock market, let's dive into our education segment where we're going to talk about Social Security and wills and trusts. Before I do that, let me just ask Mike, has there been any questions? And I will also go back after Facebook Live and answer questions, and you can come back and watch this anytime and see those questions answered. Okay, all clear. I must be doing a fabulous job. Maybe not. So, okay, let's talk about Social Security. I want to talk about the basics. So right now, they're proposing giving people a loan of $5,000, and you pay interest to the Social Security Trust Fund if you take this loan, and you pay interest until you collect Social Security. And I think this is just the worst idea I have ever seen in history. I mean, this helps the government, but for the individual, let's say you're 30 years old and you're like, you know what, I could use this $5,000. I don't recommend it because you're not going to be taking Social Security till 62 or maybe even 70, and 30 to 40 years of interest. Yeah, bad idea, you guys. And here's the other deal. I mean, if you're 10 years away from collecting Social Security, I still think it's a bad idea because we don't know what the interest is. We will here soon if they end up passing this. But they say that your first 3 months that you're supposed to collect Social Security, you're basically not going to get a check. So you're going to have to delay retirement longer. So I'm not a big fan of anybody taking this $5,000. If you're hurting, I mean, I know you have to do what you have to do, but it is not advisable. Don't do it. It's really bad. And what would Dave Ramsey say is my question. I know a lot of you are Dave Ramsey fans. He would be like, dumb. Okay, so let's not do it. I think it's really one of the worst things that the government's putting together, and it's going to hurt people in retirement. So $5,000, in my opinion, is not worth it, especially even if the interest rate is 2%, but over 20, 30 years, yeah, not a fan. Don't do it. Please do not. But I want to talk about Social Security and some of the changes because you might be in your 20s and 30s and 40s. You might even be 60 or 70 and collecting Social Security. And the big thing is here, it says in 2034, they're talking about Social Security, your payment going down 76%. So if you're somebody who's collecting Social Security right now and you're getting $1,000 a month and it gets chopped down 25%, hey, I think that's bad news. And really what the government just has to do is they have to change some things. They're kicking the can down the road. Nobody wants to talk about Social Security right now. And the reason is there's elections. And if anybody talks about cutting your benefits or talks about, hey, we're going to tax Social Security, or hey, we're going to take away Social Security, guess who's not going to get elected? So nobody wants to talk about it. And it is going to be a huge conversation in 2021. And here's the deal. These numbers were based on at the end of last year's numbers. And now we have 30 million people not working. And so that's really created a backlog. So when the numbers come out again at the end of this year, it's going to look way worse. So we have a lot of catching up to do. And so some of you who are very young are thinking, Charisse, millennial, is Social Security even going to be here for me? And here's the deal. I don't know. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm an Xennial to be exact. I don't even know if it's going to be here for me. So that's why the young people, we have to plan differently. You have to save more than ever now than our parents and grandparents ever did, just because that paycheck might not be there. And I really hope it is. But at what rate, at what amount, and what age? The earliest we can collect Social Security now is age 62. And you know that's the most popular age to take it? And the reason is because grandpa took it and dad took it at 62 years old. So we're going to take it at 62. And so if you take Social Security at 62, I need to let you all know, you do not get 100% of your benefits that you earned. You get 75%. Now, if you are between 66 and 67 years old, you get 100% of your benefit, right? And so that's a great thing. So a lot of people are saying, well, maybe I'll wait till I'm 66 or 67 to collect my benefit so that I get a full $1,500, not $1,200, right? And so you get the full amount. Now, I will tell you, the latest you can collect Social Security is age 70. And so there is some value there. And some people might be waiting to collect Social Security at age 70, because if at 62, you were supposed to get $1,200. And then at age 67, you're supposed to get $1,700. But then at age 70, you could get $2,400. Is that worth the wait? And once upon a time, I would say yes, because Social Security, every year that you delay taking your Social Security from ages 66 to age 70, they actually give you an 8% compounding interest. And no, we can't even guarantee you that in the stock market. But my tune has changed, folks. My tune has changed. I am not as optimistic about the federal government and what they are offering us and their guarantees anymore, especially with all the stimulus going out, not a whole lot of jobs. We're in trillions of dollars of debt. So we really have to plan and pretend, not for baby boomers, but the younger people, millennials and Gen Xers, that maybe Social Security won't be here. And you know what? The only thing we should be worried about as millennials and Gen Xers is just keep working and save. And let's make sure our moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas are protected. And that means we're going to have to soak it up. We might not get it, but our baby boomers and retirees, they can't go back to work. They can't go back to work, and they can't take a short of a paycheck because there's not enough in the Social Security Trust Fund to cover all this noise and all these dollars. Last year, there was one person retiring for 3 people working. And if you go back a few years before that, there was 10 people working for 1 person retiring. But the big numbers have changed. That's because there's 10,000 people retiring every day for 9 more years. 10,000. Did you hear me? Every day for 9 more years. And they're all going to be collecting Social Security. So we don't have enough workers in the workforce. But what's been working so far for us is that the interest that we've been pulling off Social Security Trust Fund has helped us fill the gap for that. But next year, 2021, there's not enough interest coming off the Social Security Trust Fund that there was conversation that they're going to be selling these non-marketable securities, which scares the tar out of me because I don't know too many people that can sell non-marketable securities. I'm sure the government will figure out a way. But so we're having some issues. And that was all before COVID-19. So you guys see what I'm talking about here? We have this, I call it the snowball and the snowball is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and going down this hill. So some changes are going to have to be made. And some of the changes that might have to be made is for us younger people, or let's just say you're 55 and you think the earliest you can collect Social Security is age 62. I'm afraid that is not the case. I wouldn't put it past the government is that the earliest for collecting Social Security will probably be jumped up to 63 or maybe even 64. So you might end up working longer than expected if you're expecting that paycheck. Full retirement age used to be age 66. Now it's 67 depending on your age. Do you think they're going to bump that up to maybe 68? Yes, they're already doing that. And age 70 is when you have to collect. I wouldn't put it past the government to say, hey, if you want to collect later, let's do it, right? And so we'll see what happens there. But be very careful. And for baby boomers who are already collecting or just getting ready to collect, I do a Social Security maximizer test, and it will tell you when you should collect, when you shouldn't collect. And a lot of times you can add $100,000 to $200,000 to $300,000 more over your life expectancy when you collect Social Security. But now I'm just not sure we should follow that data and that math anymore. So, and that's why we encourage people to do one-on-ones with us so we can see how it's going to affect you. Do you have a pension? Do you have cash rental money? Do you have other dividend money? What are your other monies that you have to live on? Because it's not a cookie cutter answer. And it's definitely good to get that Social Security maximization. At least I would say if you're 55 and older. If you're younger, we'll just wait 20 years before we even talk about Social Security. But I want you to start saving more. I had somebody I spoke to today, 33-year-old. He said he's contributing 12% of his salary to his retirement. I was so proud of this guy. And it was really interesting because most 33-year-olds aren't doing that. They're contributing 3 or 6%. I'm telling you, pretend those raises aren't coming in and start shoveling money into your savings just so that you can retire. Remember, my job is to help and educate, inspire, get you to retirement and beyond, and give you some tips on how to do that. So if you get a raise this year, 1 or 2%, or say you get 2% and you're contributing only 6% to your 401k or any kind of retirement account, pretend you didn't get it. Maybe only bump your contributions now to 7%. Do that every year. Out of sight, out of mind. You won't even notice that it's happening. Also, when you're contributing there, you might have extra savings. I'm a huge fan of doing Roths, so make sure you're doing those Roths too. So I just went on my first tangent. Let me get back to Social Security. I get a little passionate and excited about saving and helping young people. Social Security, just make sure you guys are planning for it. You're planning on what if it's not there, and if it is there, that's great. But let's plan that it not be there. I mean, baby boomers plan for the 3-legged stool: Social Security, savings, and pensions, right? And they planned that the third one wasn't going to be there, Social Security, but it is there for them. So luckily, that will hold strongly. Okay, I'm going to move on. Let's move to the last part of our teaching segment today, and it's about wills and trusts. Wills and trusts. Everybody needs some sort of will or trust or so on and so forth. So what I'm kind of going to fast forward here because Dave Ramsey says you really only 95% of the people out there need a will. Clark Howard says the same thing. You only really need a will because trusts are really expensive, but they don't tell you what to do to protect yourself and why we need these trusts. But Susie Orman, that's my girl, she says, you need a will, but you might also need the trust. It might be worth saving the money to get a trust. So this segment, I'm going to tell you who should have a will, who should have a trust, and ignore all these noise from all these famous people because they're giving you blanket statements. They can't go into detail. So I'm going to go into some details today because it's super duper important. So let's start with the most important document. Well, the second most important document is called the will. You know you can create a simple will online. Simple as ever. You can go do that. It might cost you $15. Or if you use our attorneys, they charge you somewhere $100 for a will. So if you don't have an attorney and you need some tips on who to go to between North and Central Florida, make sure you reach out to us via our website, zinniawealth.com. Put your information in, let us know what you want, and we'll make sure we get that information to you. But why do we need a will? If you do not have a will and you are in a state that says, okay, 50% of your assets go to your siblings, and the other 50% goes to your kids. Some states actually say this. And if you don't have a will that says who gets what, it gets split up. What if you're somebody that said, you know what, I've disowned my brother and sister, and I want all of my assets to go to my kids. But the state says, oh, well, you're going to be kicking and screaming in your grave, right? Haha. But I have to tell you that get a will. It's $100. Sometimes they're $200. You go to a local attorney, let them know who gets what, who gets the car, who gets the ring, who gets the dirty couches on, the front room, right? Who gets the house, who gets the assets. You have to do this. It is so affordable, and I highly recommend it. Everybody needs a will, because the state will bring somebody in, a stranger, and that stranger will divvy up your assets for you. And this causes a lot of fighting. And if you want to have peace when you're arrested and in your final resting place, I highly recommend you set this up. So that's the first one. It is affordable. If you need to save some money, stop going to Starbucks for the next couple of months, and you'll save just enough to be able to get that will done. So the next thing, before I go on the trust, I think, and I truly believe 100%, this is the most important document that you must have. It's called the power of attorney and healthcare surrogate. They're separate. They do cost $100 a piece, just so you know. But just because you're married doesn't mean you can make decisions for your spouse. Now, isn't that incredible? Did you know that? Most people don't know that. Let's say you get in a car accident. You're 30 years old, you're 7-year-old. It doesn't matter. You're married. Husband gets in a car accident. You go to the hospital, and he can't speak, he can't talk, he can't do anything. But he needs surgery, and he needs this and that. Well, guess what? You're not allowed to tell the doctors what needs to get. You have to have a healthcare surrogate on file, hopefully laminated and in the trunk of your car, and bring it up to him and be like, oh, yes, I can. And so here's the deal. This happened to me personally. I was sitting in the hospital, and a family member did not have a healthcare surrogate, and they had to have a hospitalist come to us and say, who's going to make the healthcare decisions? You need to sign here. But it took 5 to 6 hours before we even saw this hospitalist. I mean, what a joke. So be proactive. Get the documents in place. Be prudent, and make sure you're doing your due diligence. Don't go to an attorney who's going to charge you $500, right? I mean, I already told you what the prices are. So this power of attorney and healthcare surrogate is the most important document. The power of attorney is slightly different than the healthcare surrogate. So the healthcare surrogate just tells you who can say, okay, he can do these drugs. He can get this prescription. He can get this surgery, and that kind of thing. And then there's also the power of attorney. And the power of attorney is really there for deciding who, money. They're the money person. And so for me and in my household, I have one person who is my healthcare surrogate. And then I have a different person who's my power of attorney. And the reason is the person who is my power of attorney, if I'm in the hospital too long and they're dictating on who's supposed to pull the plug, I know my power of attorney is like, Charisse, you're costing too much. We're pulling the plug. No doubt. But that's why they're in charge of the finances, because I want you to keep me alive to the very end. And my healthcare surrogate, who I love dearly, will keep me alive to the very end. So you can name different people, but make sure they're trusted people that you really, really trust. So 2 most important documents: healthcare surrogate, power of attorney. Second document, you must do this, whether you go online and do it yourself or you go to an attorney and have them do it for $100, $150, is that will. You want your assets to go to the people you want them to go to. But I will tell you, just because you have these documents, it does not protect you from probate, which I'm about to talk about next. And I know there's probably some questions out there. I'm going to hold off a second, because I want to talk about trust before we open up for questions and probate. And so let's talk about the trust. So some people say you don't need a trust, and some people say you do need a trust. And that is a true statement in my book. I will sit down with people every day and I'll say, do you have a will or a trust? And I will tell you 90% of the people I sit down with, and they're in retirement, and even young people, they say, no, we don't have one. And I push them. I'm like, that's the first thing we need to take care of. But the trust, the purpose of a trust, one purpose is to protect your assets from probate. And so probate is a legal process for which when you pass away, everything has to be funneled through the court system. And your homes and your bank accounts and anything that didn't have a beneficiary, it could take 2 to 3 years for all of your assets to be hung up in court. And I will tell you, this is the bread and butter of an attorney, a state attorney. Maybe 5 to 10% of your total estate will go to the attorney for this. And so, but they're doing all the work. So of course, so if you want to save money on your total estate, this is something to start really planning for. So probate, if you have a home and your kids need to sell it and they're paying insurance and taxes, they can't get anybody in the house, and it's held up in probate for 3 years, that's another big cost. So you want to avoid that delay. That is one reason to get a trust. Another reason to get a trust is privacy. I have a trust because my kids are very young, and anybody can go down to the courts after all is said and done and show up at your court hearing and know who's getting your stuff. I don't need a vacuum salesman to show up at my front door selling my 10-year-old and or whoever's taking care of them a vacuum. You know what I mean? I'm talking about old days here. But it happens and it's scary. So for me, I have a trust for a few reasons, and that is to protect my kids if something happens to me. And the other reason why I have a trust is so that all my assets don't go through probate. If they need to spend money, if they need to do things, if things are happening, we need to sell property, it's not getting hung up, right? I want that stuff to be efficient. And even in a trust, it dictates in even more detail about beneficiaries. You know what I love about a trust is that it's a language you can create. If you say that you, in your trust, anybody who contests your trust, and you put in there, anybody who contests my trust gets 1 penny, you can put that in there. And the person who contests this because they feel like they should own some of that money, well, you get to give them a penny. So you get to dictate what you put in your trust, which I really love. It's a contract that you create with the attorney. And so wonderful things, but trusts aren't, inexpensive. There's simple trusts that cost about $1,000 on average, and more complex trusts, $2,500 to $5,000. And it just depends. And so when people come into me, I tell them, the person who doesn't need the trust is this person. You have 1 or 2 beneficiaries. You have some money at the bank account, in your bank account, and you have a beneficiary on your bank. If you have a beneficiary on your bank account, that skips probate. So you don't need to put that bank account in a trust, right? And if you can't put a beneficiary on your bank account, which I want all of you to ask your banks, do I have a beneficiary on my bank account? Some banks won't let you. Tell me, want to do a TOD, which is a transfer on death, or a POD, payable on death, okay? And that basically skips probate, and then assets and cash can be shifted around very easily. But if that's not the case, sometimes people put their bank accounts in the name of the trust also. So beneficiaries, if you have beneficiaries, you're good to go. You don't need to put that in the trust, most likely. Remember, I'm not a lawyer. Make sure you sit down with our attorneys. I know enough to get me in trouble, and I'm legally allowed to say some of this stuff, so we're good to go. Now, if you have an IRA, you have a 401k, you have a life insurance, you have an annuity, you have one of those retirement accounts, and you have a beneficiary on there, you don't need to put that stuff in the trust if you don't want to, because the beneficiaries on those statements supersede whatever the trust says, right? So that might be a reason. You might say, okay, I have a bank account and I have retirement accounts, and I have 2 people who are my beneficiaries, Charisse, so maybe I don't need a trust. I just need a will and a power of attorney and healthcare surrogate. So there you go, maybe. But there's one asset that's left over, and that's typically your house. Your house, you can't put a beneficiary on it. So your house typically goes through probate and can be held up 9 months to 3 years. There is something out there called the Ladybird deed, and you can go online and Google Ladybird deed and fill out the form, go file it with the courthouse, and you pay $16 or something like that. And basically that keeps your house from going to probate. So if you just have one property and you wanted to keep it that simple, that's how you can really do it on your own. But remember, talk to the attorneys first. Our attorneys give you free consultations, and they'll say, yes, Charisse was right, but for your situation, this is what you really need to do, because there's another step up from there. There's the enhanced life estate. The attorney does that for you, and that's about $250. So that's much more affordable than a trust. So again, a lot of people don't need trust. So Dave Ramsey and Clark Howard were right on some of that. But I see that about 30% of the people who come to my office do need trust for certain reasons. Now we talked about beneficiaries on all your retirement accounts and annuities and life insurances and that kind of stuff. Let me add, double check, if you were married, got divorced, you left your ex-spouse on those beneficiaries as the same name, you remarried, and then you said, hey, honey, let's go get a trust because Charisse said it might be a good idea to get a trust. The attorney said so. And you have the new spouse on the trust, but you didn't change the ex-spouse on the beneficiary designation on your account. The beneficiary designation wins in court over the trust. So if you put a trust together and you change something there, make sure you change your life insurance policies and all those other things, because that would be a bad thing. And I've seen it happen. Oh boy, have I seen it happen. So be checking your beneficiaries. Make sure they're up to date and the right people are on there. So again, we're talking about trust and who needs a trust and who doesn't need a trust. So here are more reasons you need a trust. Let's just say you own maybe a business and you have 2 children, and one of them are working the business with you, and their plan is to take over the company. So the question is do you create a trust or something that separates both kids, right? They're adult children. Do we set aside assets in this trust for the other adult child that might run the business down? So you have to think about those things and set assets aside if you're trying to split your assets among them too. Let's just say you're somebody also who has a lot of property. I had somebody come into my office, and it was a beneficiary. It was a few years ago, and there was 12 siblings. Mom and dad did a great job. They were part of the great generation, and they had homes and oil rigs and all of this property. They didn't have a will or a trust or an LLC naming any of the kids as trustees or anything like that. And they had all this property, and it was 3 years. And they said they still could not sell any of the properties. They just wanted to get one done because they're spending all these fees on insurance and taxes because one of the 12 siblings would not sign on the dotted line. Talk about fighting. Talk about non-peace when you're at rest. So I tell folks, maybe create a LLC and name one of your children that you really trust that will share profits after you pass away, and or create a trust and then make that and put all the property in the trust. Remember, talk to the attorneys about this because there's some tax provisions you have to be very aware of if you put properties in trust and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going into that here. It's very complicated, and that's why you need to go see the attorney. So other reasons to have a trust. One of the last reasons to have a trust, even if it costs $1,000, what if you have 3 kids? And let me give you a great example. Let's say you go hiking in the Appalachians and it's snowing out, and at the end of the trip, you ask all of them, and let's say they're all seniors in high school, and you ask the first one, hey, what was the neatest thing you saw on this trip? And it's like, oh, the glaciers or whatever is out there. The other one says, oh, it was the big bears that we had to run from. And then the third child says, the red Ferrari in the hotel parking lot. I'm going to tell you, maybe that's the child you create a trust for. So you can create individual trusts for each child. There's the irrevocable trust and the revocable trust. There are 2 types of trusts. There's many more, but the most popular trust, and this is the one I have, is called the revocable trust. It just means we can change it whenever we want. Okay. And so I hope this trust conversation has helped. And not everybody needs a trust. If you have a lot of beneficiaries or a lot of properties or some businesses, that might be a reason. And you want to skip probate. And if you don't have all that stuff and all those people, like I said, follow the operations of law. Put TODs, POTs on your wills. Or if you can't put a beneficiary, make sure the beneficiaries are right on your brokerage statements wherever you have them, or in your retirement accounts. And those skip probate. Remember, it's all about skipping probate, keeping more money in your pocket. And there's some protections to that as well. So we have Mike put up the picture of wills and trusts. It basically is just a little comparison. I don't know how well they can see it. Is it up? It's up. It looks good. So you guys can see here just a little bit. If you go back to Facebook and press pause, you can kind of see what's going on here. And this is graphics from the legacylawcenters.com. And it gives you a visual of some of the differences and commonalities. So it kind of gets you started a little bit. And again, if you have any questions about, should you be getting wills and trusts, please contact our office. Go to zinniawealth.com. We'll certainly start the conversation with you, and then we'll say, okay, maybe you do need to go sit with the attorney, or hey, based on this information, maybe you don't need to, and you could save yourself a bundle. But we have some amazing attorneys, mortgage brokers, CPAs that we work with that we use personally through North and Central Florida. So definitely, if you're looking for some tips and who to use, we'll certainly help you there. Okay, so back to the story of Dave Ramsey, Clark Howard, and Susie Orman. Don't always listen to what these bigwigs are saying. They're doing blanket statements because they're talking to the world. They're not talking to you. They're just giving you some ideas, and they expect you to go to people like us to do the final story, do the final analyzation. So remember that. Okay, so I really talked a lot about wills and trusts. And, I wanted to give you a client story. Our client came in a couple of weeks ago. Well, it was a Zoom meeting. They didn't really come in. And they were about to spend $4,000 for a trust. I'm like, okay, what are you trying to do? This and this and that. And I said, and after I analyzed the situation, I was like, you don't need to spend $4,000 for a trust. I mean, that's a simple trust. You only need to spend $1,000. I said, who are you going to? And I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't recommend going to them because they're famous for charging a lot of money for a trust. So you need a trusted attorney, and they're supposed to be fiduciaries. And sometimes I can't explain why one attorney charges more than the other. Estate planning is estate planning. That's the specialty. That's what they do, and that's all that they do. So I actually referred them out to one of our attorneys, and I said, bake me lots of chocolate chip cookies because that's my conversation. And they always chuckle, but make sure you're not getting price gouged out there. That's a big thing. Okay, before I move on to our Doing Good segment, some local news here in Ocala, some cool stuff. I just want to answer some basic questions. I can't go into depth, but if there's any basic questions on will and trust there, Mike. Oh. Thank you. Okay, so it sounds like I answered most of your questions because I'm long-winded and I'm very focused today. All right, so let's move on to the good news. So cool. I'm going there afterwards. So if you want to say hello to me, I will be there as long as the rain stops. In Ocala, there is a Brick City Farmers Market that is open. It's on Thursdays from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. I just love it. And there's two people who started this, and they said there's 40 vendors there. And I'm the first one on scene. I'm already late, clearly, because we're running into the show here. But basically, a lot of the farmers markets closed down. So they're like, we're going to open one and we're going to make it more COVID-19 good experience. And people are looking forward to this. But it was this news I just caught whiff of. And it's on weekdays. So it's not a weekend. And here's the address. And it's by my office. I was so excited. I thought I had to go down to the downtown square in Ocala. It's off 3400 Southwest 60th Avenue. It's on the property of Beautiful Moments Party Rental and Design. So again, 60th Avenue. So my office is on 60th Street. So I'm assuming that's going to be somewhere around Airport Road, I'm assuming here. And so if you're going to go down there, I'll catch you down there. I need some fruits and vegetables. I'm out of broccoli, which is one of my favorite foods. And yeah, very creative. So doing good here in Ocala, being creative, finding ways to make money, love it, and helping the community and 40 other vendors. So kudos. See you there soon. Okay, so we've had a pretty long-winded segment with the markets and lots of noise going out there. This is the time for a Q&A. If you have any questions, this is the time to do it. I had somebody said, Charisse, I couldn't figure out how to ask you a question. There's just this little box. You just start typing away. If not, make sure you go to zinniawealth.com and you can ask the questions there. Remember, we're doing Zoom meetings and conference calls. And this week, our office officially opened up. I have been so busy. People have been waiting for my office, for me personally to be in office. My office has been working, and I'm very thankful for that. And I am very blessed for my amazing office staff and my advisor associates. And we are going on a beach retreat this weekend, and we're going to go enjoy ourselves and be back to work on Tuesday. So my office is closed on Monday because I am treating my staff, which is well deserved and much appreciated for all the work and care. And I must let everybody know, I don't do this alone. I do not survive and run offices in North and Central Florida alone. I'm just the face, okay? My staff is fabulous, and I love the feedback that I get, continual feedback from people who come in to say, man, I love Joe, and Mary was awesome, and Marissa, and so and Goldie, we just have an amazing staff, and I just want to put some props out there in case you ladies are watching. I love you to death and appreciate you. And to that note, I don't think we have any questions. That means we did a pretty good job, right, Mike? Okay. Remember, share this link if you'd like on your Facebook pages and people can watch it. We love people following us and watching us. We're going to change it time to time. I really don't have a pre-plan for next week about what I'm going to talk about. I'm just thinking hot topic. I don't know. I'll make an announcement. I'll let you know. There's always something important to talk about. And remember, you can go to zinniawealth.com. There's a little red book to retirement. It's 37 pages. It basically talks about all these different pieces you need to start focusing on and thinking about to get you to retirement and beyond. And we talked about Social Security today. If you go to the education section, there's a guide on Social Security. It really dives into taxes on Social Security and everything else. That's a whole other conversation we'll have another day. So I definitely advise on that. If you have any questions about those wills and trusts, reach out. I'd love to help you. And all these guides are absolutely for free. And if you're watching for the first time, if you've been tuning in here and there and you want a second opinion, we do them absolutely at no cost. You'll be sitting with me or one of my advisors. And basically we do a fee analysis, a risk analysis, income analysis, Medicare analysis. If you're younger, we're going to talk about stock market charts and what you need to do to prep and how much you need to start saving now to get to retirement. And we'd love to be that person that helps you. Again, zinniawealth.com. And as usual, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you here next week at 3:30 with more great information. Live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
She is a financial planner and advisor.
She's the founder and president of Zinnia Wealth Management. She's also a popular radio show host.
There's a way to have your money in the market and have protected growth.
This holistic approach will help people get to and through retirement.
Absolutely.
You have to change the way that you think. It's not about having these double-digit returns anymore. Things are changing, and you have to have an advisor that's keeping up with the changes.
Your outcome is going to become very desirable if you have some sort of coach helping you along the way.
And our next recipient from the Media and Communications Expo, Charisse.
Charisse Rivers.
Do not have to risk all your money in the market to survive, because it's about the retirement dream.